Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to really get under the skin of the sources you're working with.
That's right. We help pull out those key insights.
And today, well, we're diving deep into a classic, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, specifically focusing on excerpts from Chapter 4.
A really crucial chapter.
Absolutely. Our mission here is to unpack Victor Frankenstein's intense scientific focus. What were those big discoveries that just took over his life?
Yeah, it's not just about what he did, but why. What does it tell us about, scientific ambition itself?
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Chapter 4 kicks off, and bam, Victor is immediately swallowed up by science.
It's immediate. Natural philosophy, chemistry. Shelley writes, it became nearly my sole occupation.
Right. Not just a hobby. It consumed him. And he wasn't just, reading the Cliffs Notes. He was deep into modern scientific works, hitting lectures, making connections with the scientists at university.
He really threw himself into it. And remember, back then, natural philosophy covered a lot, basically what we call physical sciences today.
Good point. And Shelley gives us these interesting contrasts with his professors. There's M. Krempe.
Yes. Described as having sound sense and real information, but also a repulsive physiognomy and manners. Not exactly Mr. Charisma.
No. Sounds like that tough prof you learn a lot from, but maybe don't invite for coffee.
Exactly. But valuable knowledge nonetheless.
Then there's M. Waldman. Totally different vibe.
Oh, completely. A true friend, Shelley calls him. His teaching style was gentle, never dogmatic. Victor says, in 1,000 ways he smoothed for me the path of knowledge. Made complex stuff seem easy.
That's the kind of teacher who really lights a fire under you. So you've got Krempe's hard facts and Waldman's, inspiration. How do you think that combo shaped him?
That's a great question. I think Krempe probably hammered home the need for, rigor, facts, maybe even a bit of skepticism. While Waldman nurtured the passion, made it exciting, accessible. So you put those together, solid grounding plus real enthusiasm, and boom, perfect conditions for rapid growth.
And grow he did. His passion, his ardor just intensified. We get that line about him working so late that the stars often disappeared in the light of morning whilst I was yet engaged in my laboratory.
Wow. That's intense dedication, almost obsessive.
Right. It shows how everything else just fell away. Sleep, socializing, probably eating.
Yeah, and it's a classic trait of people making breakthroughs, isn't it? But Shelley frames it almost immediately as like an imbalance. A warning sign, maybe?
Definitely feels like foreshadowing. And it wasn't just him noticing his own pace. The students were astonished. The masters impressed.
Even Krempe, Mr. Gruff, apparently made some crack about Cornelius Agrippa.
Right. Kind of sly dig, maybe hinting that Victor was dabbling in stuff that was maybe a bit out there. Forbidden knowledge territory.
Exactly. It suggests even then people saw his focus was maybe pushing boundaries, maybe dangerously so.
So fast forward 2 years, Victor's made actual discoveries, improved chemical instruments. He's getting great esteem and admiration. He's kind of thinking, okay, done here, maybe time to go home.
He felt he'd hit the ceiling at Ingolstadt. But then
an incident happened that protracted my stay. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this is the turning point. He becomes fascinated with the human body, the structure of life itself, asking that huge question, whence did the principle of life proceed?
Not just how life works, but where it comes from. The ultimate question.
And he thinks he can find the answer. So his focus shifts dramatically to physiology, driven by, quote, an almost supernatural enthusiasm.
And this is where it starts to get, creepy.
Yeah, seriously creepy. He figures to examine the causes of life, we must first have recourse to death.
Logic dictates. Study death to understand life, which means anatomy, decay, corruption.
It's confronting the uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Which science sometimes demands. But Shelley adds that detail about his upbringing.
Oh, right. His father intentionally raised him without superstitious fears. So darkness didn't freak him out. Churchyards were just places bodies were stored.
Exactly. Merely the receptacle of bodies deprived of life. It wasn't gothic horror for him. It was like data collection. A purely scientific lens.
Which is maybe necessary for the work, but also kind of chilling. That detachment.
Definitely hints at a detachment from the, human and ethical side of it all.
But even with that scientific view, being in vaults and charnel houses, it still got to him. He talks about seeing how the fine form of man was degraded and wasted. It's graphic.
He admits it was insupportable to the delicacy of the human feelings. Yet he keeps going.
That relentless curiosity, pushing through the disgust.
And it's right there in that darkness, surrounded by decay, that A sudden light broke in upon me, a light so brilliant and wondrous, yet so simple.
The eureka moment.
The massive breakthrough. He believes he's found the cause of generation in life.
Yeah.
He's figured out how to bestow animation upon lifeless matter.
Whoa. The ultimate power, basically.
But then immediately, talking to the reader, he clams up. He knows you want the secret, right?
Yeah, he totally anticipates that.
But he refuses. Says, I will not lead you on to your destruction and infallible misery.
So even in his moment of triumph, there's this immediate sense of danger. Why hold back then?
It's a huge moral pause button, isn't it? He's already seeing the potential for disaster. He warns against just grabbing knowledge without thinking.
He even says maybe it's happier not knowing everything, right? Like being content with your small-town world instead of aspiring beyond your nature.
Yeah, how much happier that man is who believes his native town to be the world. It's profound. When does seeking knowledge become dangerous?
It makes you think about responsibility, doesn't it? But despite that warning flash, he goes ahead.
The ambition wins out. He knows creating a whole person is insanely complex, fibers, muscles, and veins.
He thinks about maybe starting simpler first.
Briefly, yeah. But no, that initial success, that taste of power, it pushes him. He wants to create something as complex and wonderful as man. Ambition overriding caution.
And practically getting the materials, that's a challenge.
A massive challenge. But he's optimistic. Science is advancing every day. Mechanics are improving. He sees these as just hurdles, not stop signs. Very much that era's belief in progress.
Total faith and ingenuity. Like, the sheer scale of it doesn't make him think it's impossible. Borderline hubris, maybe?
You could definitely say that. So he starts the filthy creation.
And decides to make it huge, like 8 feet tall. Easier to work on the tiny bits, he figures.
Smart in a grim way. And the feeling driving him. Like a hurricane, he says.
That image, a hurricane, really says it all. Powerful, destructive potential.
Totally. He's not just creating life. He thinks he's breaking the ideal bounds of life and death. Imagines a whole new species worshiping him. It's godlike aspiration.
Almost Promethean. He even thinks maybe he could reverse death altogether, bring people back.
Ambition morphing into a desire to conquer death itself. It really makes you ask, where's the line?
Yeah, where is the line? The novel uses him as a huge warning sign, doesn't it? Ambition without ethics.
Absolutely. And the personal cost starts showing immediately. He's getting pale, thin, emaciated with confinement, sacrificing his own health.
But he's running on fumes, basically. Sustained by one secret which I alone possessed. The hope.
Then he gives us those really gothic, disturbing descriptions. Midnight labors, digging into nature to her hiding places, and asks, who shall conceive the horrors of my secret toil?
Torturing animals to animate clay.
Ugh.
That's deeply troubling.
It really highlights the moral compromises. He's not just studying death, he's desecrating it. And he admits even remembering it makes him tremble now.
The older Victor is definitely haunted. He describes his lab a solitary chamber, or rather cell, totally cut off.
A cell, yeah. And the materials from the dissecting room and the slaughterhouse, bleak doesn't even cover it.
And he knows it's awful. He feels loathing for it, but the eagerness just keeps growing, that internal battle.
Must have been immense. He's disgusted but compelled, trapped.
And the world outside just keeps turning. Beautiful seasons pass, he doesn't even notice. My eyes were insensible to the charms of nature.
Total tunnel vision. He's ignoring friends, family. He knows his dad's probably worried, even remembers his dad saying silence equals neglected duty.
But he can't pull himself away. Plans to reconnect after it's done, which feels like such a dangerous gamble.
Yeah, like he fundamentally misunderstands how important those connections are.
Which leads him to that moral detour in the narrative, where he basically says, keep a calm mind, don't let passion wreck your peace.
Right. And he applies it even to knowledge. If learning stuff makes you neglect people or lose simple joys, then that knowledge is unlawful.
Then he throws in historical examples, Greece, Caesar, etc., ambition leading to ruin. It feels like the older Victor breaking in.
Totally. It's a direct lesson learned the hard way. A warning embedded in his own story.
But then he snaps back to the timeline. Dad's still checking in, gently. More time passes. He's getting closer. The end is in sight.
But that initial excitement, gone, replaced by anxiety. He feels less like an artist, more like a slave.
Doomed by slavery to toil in the mines. What a shift from the hurricane of enthusiasm.
It's dramatic. He's got a slow fever, jumpy, avoids everyone. The psychological toll is immense.
Just running on the energy of his purpose and this desperate hope for rest once it's finally over.
Hope that, we know doesn't quite pan out. It just shows how that single-minded drive can destroy you even if the goal seems amazing.
Okay, so let's wrap this section. We've seen Victor dive headfirst into science, make this huge, terrifying discovery about animation, keep it secret because it's so dangerous, then pour everything into the creation, sacrificing his health, his relationships, his peace of mind. What really jumps out at you about his obsession here? Does that early enthusiasm already contain the seeds of tragedy?
I think what's really striking is that slow slide from curiosity to obsession. It starts noble, right? Understanding the world. But it becomes about domination, control, playing God almost. And yeah, I think that supernatural enthusiasm early on, it is a bit scary. There's no ethical brake pedal, no real thought about consequences. It's all drive. So yeah, the potential for disaster feels like it's baked in from the start, even if the initial goal seemed okay.
That's a really good point, the lack of that ethical framework. Which brings us to a final thought for everyone listening. Victor's path involved intense focus, extreme isolation, huge personal sacrifice. Is that just the price of groundbreaking discovery? Do you have to sacrifice your connections, maybe even part of your humanity, to achieve something truly world-changing?
Or is there another way? Can you have that ambition, that drive, but still keep your feet on the ground, stay connected, stay ethical?
It's the big question Frankenstein leaves us with, especially after seeing Victor's journey in this chapter. Something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.